morning. It's morning huddle time. Chad Prinky here, as always, along with my good friend, producer, co-host extraordinaire, Stacey.
Stop. Hey, how do you want us to install this water heater? And then my coworker was like, I don't know, install the water heater. Like, why are you even asking me? He's like, well, I don't know if you know, but what you designed, it can't physically fit through the front door of this building.
My class is only 40 minutes. So we have to get this done in 40 minutes. You have to clean up in 40 minutes. And then it also, when you use the miter saw, a lot of kids are scared of the miter saw, and you just see the difference in their confidence when they come in here compared to when they leave. They're excited.
Be announcing a new county that's going to join us in Maryland, so we continue to spread it. And I'll say my peers across the country are starting to take this and adopt this at their local IEC chapters.
Either AI assistant tools, you have AI master builder tools, and then you have kind of a bit of both that are 1 foot in BIM, in current processes, and 1 foot in AI.
Said, Brett, in life, opportunity meets you at your level of preparation.
She said, here's the keys, go forth and do great things.
Good morning. It is morning huddle time. Chad Prinky here alongside Stacey Holzinger as usual. Stacey, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? A little sick here.
I feel better than I sound.
Okay.
I'll tell you that. And there's nothing I can do apparently to make myself sound better. I've been putting fluids in my body all morning so that this morning for the huddle, people didn't have to feel like they might get sick just listening to the show.
Hacking up along. I've been there. I've been there on the huddle. Plenty of
Lord
times.
knows it. Yeah, I remember there was a stretch where you were there on the huddle for like 6 episodes in a row.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm on the end of it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm on that exit ramp.
Yeah. So
what's new with you?
yes, I wanted to shout out to MCCEI. We need volunteers, Maryland contractors, please, for Thursday. We have a ton of exhibits that are going on, and it's a very well organized event down at Baysox Stadium in Towson, I believe. Bowie, thank you. Bowie. Yep. So the stations are set up. It's like 20 minutes. We have 20 minutes each station. We're taking high school kids around to different types of demonstrations from contractors, which we have that covered. We just need more volunteers to help facilitate the movements of the demonstration. We have 250 high school students joining us Thursday, so that's really great. So if anyone has some time or can lend some time to help out Thursday, reach out to me or Jen Dewey's from MCCEI.
That is awesome. Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you.
Yeah, very cool. In my world, I've got, one thing I wanted to share. So the long-awaited, at least for me, I don't think anybody else, me and like anybody that is in my very, very close personal org, the book is ready.
The book. I thought you were going to talk about the boot camp. Okay.
I will, but the boot camp's boot camp's full. I mean, we could probably take like 2 or 3 more people before we have to close doors. That's coming up in the first Monday of May, which I can't remember the date, like May 3rd, I think. It's a 3-day boot camp for leadership and executive readiness for contractors. So that is, we're stoked about that. It's going to be a good event. But no, the Well-Built book is it's officially up for pre-order on Amazon. Let's go.
Yeah, it's a long time coming.
Yeah, no doubt. So if you're interested, go into the Amazon bar. Pre-order the book. You'll be able to get it in mid-June at the latest. And if you do pre-order and just shoot me over proof of purchase, I'll shoot you an advance copy of the ebook in the meantime, so you can get started
so
with
what
reading.
can we expect in this book?
Well, so the book is about how the top 2% of construction contractors create superior value, profits, and excellence. The whole idea is I've been extremely fortunate to hang around some of the best contractors in the world, I think, over the I guess 16 years that I've been doing this type of work. And I've worked with over 200 contractors during the course of that time. And there's a certain percentage of those contractors that are just stunningly well run. Like they're just extraordinarily well run. And what I try to do in this book is kind of provide a step-by-step. There's 6 systems that I recommend people follow to create uncommon profits and wildly happy customers and wildly happy employees. That's what the book is all about. It's also really the backbone of a lot of the work that we do as a consulting firm, where the concepts from this book are very much the concepts that we work to implement with our clients. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm excited.
I am also really excited, and our team is geared up, and they've read it a couple of times, and they've got to make sure that we can start to integrate it with our clients. And speaking with our clients, one of the things that I wanted to talk about real quick was what are our clients are. It's apropos to our guest today, right? So Matt DeBar is going to be coming on talking about hiring and retention and really the employee experience in the construction industry, which is going to be fun. I'm noticing that it's a great thing. Our clients have hiring needs, but man, is it difficult for them to find talented people in the positions that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You actually worked before you started your own business. You used to work for a contractor, and I was wondering, like, what did the process look like for doing it?
Well, the last time I applied for a job myself was 2010, I think, and I applied on Craigslist, which now Craigslist evolved into, God, it got creepy, I feel like. And Monster was popular back then,
right?
Now people are using Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and LinkedIn, I think, are the top 3.
But it's also, I don't know. I feel like all of it is somehow not quite working. Like it's not what it was. There's something about. So here's my journey is actually kind of funny. I have the only job I ever quote unquote applied for was when I was 15. I made submarine sandwiches at Wawa. Right, I made hoagies at Wawa, and then I ran the register eventually. It was pretty awesome. I was very, very, very good at it. That was the only job I ever quote unquote applied for. And I drove into the place, walked in, filled out an application. Every other job I ever had up into starting my business, either somebody like actively recruited me and came and got me, and I didn't even have a resume, or I walked into a place and I said, "Hey, I want to work here." That type of thing. So I don't know. The whole online shopping for a job thing is actually not something I'm particularly familiar with from the employee side. Certainly from the employer side, I've hired people through that way, but I don't know. Something feels like isn't it always best to try to hire from your network? Kind of thought.
You made a good point there, actually. So when I worked with the contractors in the past, we would get field personnel that would just come in and want to fill out an application. That was like the way to do things. And there's still so many construction business owners that don't operate that way still, and they don't have a career page on their site, and which they really need to have. So when I do websites, that's mandatory. Like, we're having a careers page, we're having an application, we're going to make sure it's super simple to fill out, because we don't want to deter people, make anything complicated. So these are people, our field people, they're not tech savvy. They don't want to be tech savvy. So you have to make it simple. And they still might be walking on job sites and asking if you're hiring, but they're also visiting your website.
They definitely are visiting your website. Yep.
Yes.
And maybe your social media pages, right? They might be
Yeah.
checking you out on all those categories. Matt
changed.
has got to be losing his mind trying to get into this conversation. So I'm going to bring him on. Like he's like, wait, you guys have started without me. Here he comes. Here's Matt Dabara. So Matt is the owner of Dabara Masonry, the owner of the Construction Consultants, co-founder of Construction Consultants, and it's a business that's primarily the business that I think we'll be talking about in relevance today. Though you just know that he comes from a contracting background, and he's working on a very different way of building a recruiting firm for construction companies. And once I heard about the story, really wanted to hear more and share this story with our audience. So I think there's a different approach to staffing and overall, Matt. So first off, thank you for joining the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. And so the next question that I have is, you've been listening to Stacy and I, talk about our personal experiences and kind of what our clients do and what we did and all that type of stuff. What's your, just as you were waiting to come on, my guess is you probably had thoughts and comments yourself there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, first and foremost, the best thing's happening, which is we're talking about it, we're coming up with ideas, and we're talking about solutions, right? I think that's the most important thing, high level, is this conversation, because I think a lot of contractors think there's no better way to do this, so they think there's not a way to solve their hiring issues, and that's not true. Like we do an exercise where we had a client, small town in Alaska. He's like, "There's nobody here." And we said, "Okay, what's your service?" And so we did an exercise where we, as if we were a customer, Googled his, plumbing repair. And we're like, "Hey, there's 6 other companies within 5 miles." He's like, "I never knew that." So, the first thing is dispelling the myth that it's possible. And what you were talking about lends to that. There's so many good things. I can get into some of the specifics, or we can talk a little bit more about just the psychology of what makes it successful, however you want to shape it.
So I think the overarching question that I will ask is, why are so many contractors overall not reaching their employee needs? Like why aren't they appropriately staffed to do their work? And then if I can take off the table the one that kind of everybody knows, which is that the construction industry experiences a shortfall of talent. Got it. It makes it challenging. We all agree it makes it challenging, but why is it that it's so extremely rare for individual contractors to actually achieve their staffing needs?
I stay up late at night thinking about this question. This is kind of what sparked a lot of what we do. There's a couple things. One is, if you think about it, like, I think a lot of contractors don't know that it's possible. I think number one, right? If they knew it was possible, I think sometimes they'd be doing more. The second is, what's the system to follow, right? Is it step by step? Because if it's not, so where do you start, right? I mean, I know I had that issue. It was like, I knew it was a problem. I, in the early days, underestimated the problem, and then I didn't quite know what to do about the problem. So when you think of companies, like, what we'll do sometimes is we'll say, okay, what's your revenue goal? So a company says, I'm doing, X amount of revenue. I want to increase the business by 50%, right? Or I want to double the company. And we say, okay, great. So we 2 sheets of paper, we draw a line, right? Revenue now, revenue later. Awesome. Now we say, all right, what's the org structure that you have right now? Who do you have working? Is it 4 people, right. 10, 20? And then we look at the new revenue model and we say, can you achieve this given the team you have right now? And they say, no. Okay. So the single biggest issue, do you feel like you could sell more work? Do you feel like, if we improved marketing, if you spent more, that you could sell more work? Yes. Okay. So the biggest issue right now from you hitting your revenue goal, the biggest threat, if you will, if you think of like a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, the biggest threat to you hitting your goals next year is you being able to hire people. And they say, well, yeah. And so I think it's the size of the problem and what is it costing companies, right? What is it costing you not to be able to, staff jobs appropriately, take on more work? What is it costing you in inefficiencies on the job sites? What is it costing you not being able to grow your company? I mean, I've also asked the question, another way of looking at it is, if you take your team right now and you give them an honest letter grade, like you would in school, A, B, C, right, D, F, right? How many of you would take a great A player? A lot of companies say, well, I'm not hiring, or I don't have a need. And so they wait for this immediate, like somebody quits or someone leaves. But almost every company will say, well, yeah, if you gave me an A player, somebody who's amazing, you know, if you could clone my best person and give me another one, right? My best team member, I would take it. So I think it's the system, it's the focus on it. It's how big the problem is. I mean, when we put numbers to it, right? When we quantify how big of an issue it is, then it becomes, oh, okay, I know what I'm solving, and then the question becomes, how do I solve it? So there's definitely, and I think it's hard. I mean, there's no underestimating that it's a difficult thing. And so when you package all this up, difficult, unclear exactly how much it's costing me, unclear exactly how to solve it, right? And frankly, here's the other thing. A lot of big companies aren't going around telling you how to hire. What they're doing is they're waiting for you not to hire to get a few good people and trying to roll you up or give you offers, right? Like, why would, if I'm a big company, you know, if I have 300, 500, 1,000 employees, why do I want to teach you if you have 30 how to hire? We're limited geographically. So I think, you know, my suspicion is there's an element of this is an area where it's like, hey, you know, the big companies want to hold on to the knowledge and they continue to leverage it. And my goal is to make this accessible to every company.
That's great. Yeah, and you know, I'm glad that you brought that up, the disparity between, you know, the haves and the have-nots, if you will, from a recruiting standpoint. And this is a part of what I actually aim to cover in the book, is that, you know, so my book is written about the top 2% of contractors as measured by, you know, consistent profitability over time. And you know, the one of the things that they consistently do is they recruit when they don't have a need. They have a machine always recruiting that is in the background that's churning, because exactly what you said, you don't get a look at that A player if you're not recruiting. You'd hire them if you could find them, but if you're not recruiting, you won't find them. And if the only time you ever recruit is when you have a need, you're already behind the 8 ball. And so that, you know, fundamentally is a part of the idea here with I think, you know, top performing contractors. They're recruiting no matter what. Is that what you find too?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with space on the calendar. You know, one of the things we look at is we're like, how much time did you spend this week on hiring? Right, and what are we doing? And so I think that's a big piece of it, right? Is like you said, it's somebody taking ownership of this. The other question we ask a lot is, who in your company owns hiring right now? For example, if you don't hire somebody next week or next month, who owns that? Who owns that box and is the person that you'll sit down with and say, all right, where are we at? Let's talk about this. And a lot of companies, it's like, well, you know, maybe Michael does the job postings and screens the resumes. Then it goes over to, you know, the senior project manager, or maybe it's you know, it could be the owner or the president, right? And then it could be second round interview with the COO or operations manager. Like there's a lot of times it's not always as clean and clear. That's what we really tried to build our company around was how do we take all of the hard part of like building candidate demand, right? That's what we're responsible for, and we do. How do we sift, sort, and screen all the resumes? Because the next problem is if you have somebody doing it, if, you know, Michael or Michaela is in HR and they're making a good salary, should they be sifting through resumes and going, yes, no, and then calling people up and saying, do you have a driver's license? Do you live within 20 miles of the city? Like, is that worthwhile within the company? And so that's, you know, there's a lot of kind of inefficiencies. It's heavy administrative work. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I think that the big companies have figured this out and do it and have the resources, and everybody else is kind of still, you know, they're getting there, but it's you know, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of meat on the bone in terms of how good it could be.
So if the first thing is kind of like a mindset and a discipline around continual recruiting and having, and then the second thing is maybe having a system in place with the right people assigned to the tasks of generating demand, and then, you know, an initial screening, if you will, right? Kind of qualifying who's worthy of a phone call, and then making those screening calls, and you have that sort of machine. What comes next? So I've got that moving, right? I bought in, I've heard this episode, and I'm like, all right, cool. We're going to recruit even when we don't have a demand for project management and superintendents and foremen and whatever else in our business, right? We're going to recruit for these key positions. even though I don't have an immediate quote unquote opening, because I believe in this idea of building a bench and finding A players. And I've inside my team, I've designated these different people. I've put these hats on these different people, or I've outsourced it, whatever. But what happens next is a part of the recruiting machine.
Well, I think getting somebody to clearly own it, right? We talked about, and you said that that'll be done. So as long as somebody, clearly is the one saying, I'm responsible for this project or this part of the business. What I would start with is this question, which is, would you work for you? And what I mean by that is, if you Googled your company and you knew nothing else, do you have that career page that you mentioned earlier, right? Do you have a career video, a short 60 to 90-second video showcasing the company? What are your online reviews like, right? From a company perspective. That's kind of brass tacks foundation. And then the next thing I would do is I would say, okay, have I ever taken it from the candidate's perspective? For example, have I ever, let's say I'm hiring that superintendent and I live in a city in Missouri. I would type in construction superintendent, city, Missouri as the candidate, and I would see what comes up. Who are my hiring competitors? What are they offering? What do I see? Because most companies don't know who their hiring competitors are. Most companies can tell me, they'll say, Matt, I know if I bid this project, I'll always get it, right? If these other two companies bid it. I know if I bid against this company, I'll never get it because they always lowball. But who are you competing against in the hiring space? So it's about solidifying your online brand and presence. And hiring, this is what I found when we were building all this out. Hiring is very much a local and specific sport. And what I mean by that is, when I first started trying to figure out what worked, right, I would get these silver bullets from people. They'd be like, oh, I was on a panel. This describes it best, I think. I was on a panel speaking, and to my left was this woman, extremely intelligent, came from Indeed, and she's talking about headline testing and keyword optimization and all the nuts and bolts of online. And she's like, that's how you hire. Passes the mic across the Marriott. This other gentleman, been in construction 25 years. He goes, he goes, you need to get out there, network, shake hands and kiss babies. You need to go to church. You need to meet people. You need to, and I stopped, right? And I said, you need to do both. Grab the microphone, because it's very much local and specific. It's what is your competitors not doing that you can be the first to do, because you'll have open green pastures. Maybe they're not networking as hard as you can. Or maybe they're not on the online world as much as you could be. Or, you want to find that niche. So I think it's a multi-tiered approach, and that's what we have. But it starts with getting a strong foundation of how do I optimize my brand online, and how do I understand who I'm going up against? That's first big key step. That gets you moving.
That's cool. Stacy, you've been very close to this, I know, with different clients of yours as you've worked on their overall marketing and branding. I know it's close to your heart. Are there any best practices that you would pass along for optimizing your online presence for the employee? To Matt's point, putting yourself in the employee's shoes.
I agree with Matt. I think it's a mix of both, and it definitely, you have to look at what your competition is. Like everything you're saying, I completely agree with. And I think just taking a step back and taking some time to review that and position yourself accordingly. So, if your competition, is on Indeed, but you look at their website and they're not involved in the community or any association events, maybe you take that approach. Or, looking, a lot of my clients, I see the benefits are the same across the board. They're not doing anything differently, which is really disheartening. Like, I wish they would get a little more creative that way. And if they can't, for whatever reason, you can get creative with your marketing. Like Matt said, like create a video or draw them in that way, or just the overall pitch about your company culture. That's where you could be a little bit more competitive. So.
That's great. Yeah, you can be this awesome place to work. And, so step one, let's make this really clear. Step one, be a great place to work. That's a really important piece of the puzzle. If you're struggling with recruiting, you may look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, to your point, would I work for us? And not just visibly to the outside world, but like really fundamentally, are we a great place to work? Would I go to work for this company? Would I stay here right? I may be the owner, I may be an executive on the team, so I'm not going anywhere. But if I put myself in the shoes of the employees that we're hiring right now, would I actually be excited about joining this team and staying here? And if the answer to that's no, that is the like maybe the starting block. But then when it comes to you could be this wonderful company, but I think what I'm hearing is you got to be good at telling that story, and you have to be good at doing that locally in your market, hands on, getting to know the humans, and you have to be good at doing that online. And you gotta be able to do both of those things. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we onboarded somewhere around 47 new clients last month, and for what we do in the hiring space, and we save more than $1.5 million a month in recruiter fees. So we take our fee that they pay us monthly. We look at what it would cost with a traditional recruiter, and we put that difference as a savings. So, in some of the recent data, it's a little funny because what we find is a lot of companies actually are really great places to work too. There's a flip side to that. Some of them, they clearly have issues with retention, and that's something you need to address. But we also find that a lot of companies are great to work at, but they don't even know they're great. So we have this exercise where we basically have the construction business owner take their top 1, 2, or 3 people that they would clone if they could, and sit down with them for 15 minutes and say, "Hey, you've been here 7 years. Why are you showing up every day? What do you like about the company? What do you enjoy doing?" And we find all these like wild things because we asked we had this issue, right? Where it was like an intake form. We're like, "All right, tell us why you're great." And they're like, "Well, I don't do anything different."
Right.
We're like, "All right,
you can't
tell us
ask
the longest."
them, right?
Yeah. Tell us the longest that somebody's been working for you. Well, I had, Michelle and Jack have been here 8 years. Okay, 8 years. 8 years of their life dedicated to your organization. We got to figure out why. And so we do this exercise. We find out all these great, unique ththings about the company that we can then put in that career video, put in that, job ad, if you will. And so, there is a lot of greatness. I think, it's looking honestly, and the two sides. One is you got problems, you got to fix it. We developed the software for what we call an honest employee audit. It's a 1 to 10 scale. It's all based on, workplace psychology. And so it goes through and they anonymously rank things 1 to 10. And so we can see what the team's doing and how they are. But, we found it's ironic. So we found a lot in terms of things that companies can improve, but we also found a staggering amount of amazing things with the company where the owners or the executive team or the management team are like, "Oh yeah, we just do that though." And we're like, "Yeah, but that's amazing." Like, well, Michelle was pregnant. We did these amazing things and we created this leave package and we did all this stuff. It's like, where is that in the ads? Like, that's so exciting. And so I think I just want to shine the other side of it too for companies, because there's a lot of silver lining in what I find a lot of them do that you just don't think about. Because if you get up and you work hard every day and you have a good company, you don't realize sometimes all the little things you do.
No, it's a great point, and sometimes just taking the time you should, in general, I think it's a great practice for companies to bring in outside parties for all kinds of different reasons, but with all kinds of different focuses, that is, but to talk to your people and understand what your employees, understand what your customers are saying about you. And it gives you a really, really good insight as to what people are valuing, what they care about, what they're worried about. And, to your point, right here we have these awesome companies that don't know they're awesome, right? They don't know why. Right. Yeah. It's a missed opportunity. If you could tell that story, that's huge.
Yeah. Some of my clients would survey their employees once a year, and they have the same list of questions, and you can see, depending on the changes that they made, and they really would take action. So they would, if they had a low score of 1 to 5 and it was over at a 2, they would follow up and say, "Okay, we noticed that the majority of the company is not happy with X, Y, and Z. This is what we're working on to improve." And I found that, really awesome that they did that every year. And I think a lot of people felt that way.
Yeah, I do too. And I think there's a kind of a pretty well accepted term of employee engagement surveys, and there are a lot of different products out there for doing employee engagement surveys. We do employee engagement surveys too, and I think they're exactly what you're talking about, being able to monitor trends. But there is the big disclaimer is, do not do this survey if you're not ready to take action, because there's absolutely nothing worse than asking employees what they'd like to see improved. Get that list and then do nothing. Employees will be like, Cool. You know,
Right.
we'll we'll remember that. We'll remember that you do nothing with this information. Actually, it's worse than pointless.
Yeah.
It's actually, it undermines integrity.
Well, and diving into the data, I think sometimes going deep on some of these topics, like I pulled some statistics. So another opportunity in the hiring side of things is posting to a lot of different job boards. So you have your LinkedIn, your ZipRecruiter, your Indeed, but there's literally over 100 job boards that you can use, and sometimes you come across that lucky candidate. We have clients that use social media. We do that for clients, both paid. You can do ads, but so there's a lot there, and I think a lot of people know what that is, or they know how to look and find that. But the other part is just like you would test headlines and ads, and I had I had my fulfillment team for something else I did this week, pull some statistics that I thought were pretty fun. So we had a client, and they were running a headline for a project manager, and so their headline was construction project manager available, and in this time frame, they got 17 what they deemed qualified applications, meaning applications that fit the criteria and were worth a phone call. We headline tested for them. The winning headline was transform vision into reality. Project manager wanted. We went from 17 qualified applicants to 52, same time period.
Wow.
And I have that for 3 other examples. And so I wanted to pull some numbers and put some stats behind this because a lot of it is going deep. We had another client in Texas, Dallas, Texas, hiring construction project manager, 8 qualified applicants, right? We tested, we did our method of testing different headlines. Elevate your construction career, project management opportunity in cutting edge construction. Went from 8 to 39 qualified applicants. Nothing more than headline change. So, and we've got data now because we test thousands of headlines right across. So we kind of have a formula, but I think some of it is going deep in some, so it's like saying that on the customer side, you might say certain ads don't work, or certain, bid platforms, or certain like networking methods don't work. Well, I'm networking, but it's not working. It's like, well, what are you saying? How are you presenting yourself? Where are you going? Some of it's going deep into what you're doing as well as diversifying. And I think that's going back to, companies and why they maybe do or don't do this. Some of this stuff requires you to go a little bit deep. And now you got to ask yourself, well, if I hardly have the bandwidth to screen resumes, do I have the bandwidth to be testing headlines, and tracking the data and saying, oh, this one got a 3 or 4x higher quality applicant, pass through? So I think this is why, going back to that 2%, the 2% of companies that do an amazing job, I think this is some of the reason why, because they have the bandwidth to do this stuff. And this is what we set out to do for our clients. But I wanted to just give some specific examples. I took project manager because I think a lot of companies, listening might have that specific role and can use that headline.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So thank you for that. That's really good. Our audience, I'd love to see that being tested. And just as you're talking, I'm shaking my head going, man, I look right past the headlines when I'm thinking about this, when I'm writing. Like I'm not even thinking about the headline. It's such a missed opportunity. And I'm, thank you for that. That's a really good catch. So, I'm doing kind of I'm gathering up my reflections on all of this, to this point, your recommendations and what you're talking about working. But before I go into that, I have one other question, which is, you talked about making time on your calendar. You talked about dedicated people to this effort. You're right. You talked about bandwidth. From my view, you talk about these top 2%. In almost every case, by the way, when you talk to the top 2% of contractors and you talk to them about how they got there, the answer is not, oh, once we got big, we had the bandwidth to make these key hires, and therefore we, had time to do this stuff. No. It's they were doing it. That's why they got big. It's, like process manuals. Well, my gosh, yeah, of course you got a huge project or process manual. You're a huge company. Now, we had the process manual when we were small. That's part of the way we got big. Right. And it's the same thing around the recruiting. Of course, you're recruiting all the time. You're a huge company. What? Now, we were recruiting all the time before we got big. That's how we got big. And it's another piece of the puzzle. Anyway, like realistically, how many hours a week, if a company wanted to do this on their own, how many recruiting hours a week for, let's just call it a 50 employee contractor that may end up with somewhere along the lines of like 8 to 10 openings a year? And that might be high, but let's say they're a growing 50 employee contractor that might make 8 to 10 hires a year. How many hours a week, a month? How many hours would you say they really need to be investing into sourcing, screening, interviewing, right, candidates?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that question. I'm thinking because we have clients from like one handyman hiring their first kind of assistant to we got one client has a portfolio of 5 companies. He's well into the 9 figures. I would say this that there's 2 parts, right? Because we know the system. We save clients on average 12 to 18 hours a week, and that's with us doing our system. So if you had 8 openings a year, it takes there's a big manual aspect to this. And I think this is what prevents. But here's the beautiful part. I mean, just doing even some of the things we talked about, there's a lift. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely more than 10 hours for every client on even because we do 3 typically. You have at least 2 to 3 job openings, and then we're able to kind of stack and run our model through multiple different openings. But yeah, I would estimate 12 to 20 hours a week, somewhere in there that we're going to take of qualified, having a model, following a system.
That's extremely useful, information for people, for listeners to have. And so if you're looking at that, you're like, there's no way, we do not have that bandwidth. Maybe there is, an outsource opportunity. If you're looking at that and you're like, man, we can make that happen if we work together and we assign this out. That's probably, look, I find that most things, the same is true with things like business development. It's as a company, if you're not, these are the things that that you're like, we don't need that because we have plenty of work right now. Got it. But if you don't do it now, where are you going to have work in the future? We don't need candidates, so we're not recruiting right now. Got it. But when you need candidates in the future, you're going to have them if you're not recruiting now. It's the same. It's the same thing. These are disciplines. And it's like going to the gym, man. Like you just fit it in, prioritize it, and if you do those things, it ultimately pays off. I want to take a moment and thank our sponsors, the people who helped to make the Morning Huddle possible. First, I want to thank Katz Abosch. This is a middle market accounting firm, great practice for contractors based here in the Mid-Atlantic. Katz Abosch is more than just an accounting firm. They are definitely consultants and partners with their clients. Marsh McLennan Agency, which is a full service insurance company that works with contractors, probably the largest contractor practice, mid-market contractor practice in the country. And I know their surety folks particularly well. They are top notch. So Marsh McLennan for sure. And Sandy Spring Bank. This is my bank, and are very, very reliable and trustworthy group of people who know how to set your business up for financial success. And lastly, Lawrence Law, which is a boutique law firm based also here in the Mid-Atlantic that works with that middle market contractor, which, as you can tell, is really the audience that mostly is checking out the Huddle. So please do reach out to Katz Abosch, Lawrence Law, Sandy Spring Bank, and Marsh McLennan Agency if you have any needs across any of those professional services. Matt, I'm going to do a quick summary of some of my key takeaways, and then I have a couple more questions. Stacy probably does too, and then we'll let you go. What I'm gathering so far is you need to dedicate time. You need to make that space in your calendar. For that, you probably need to dedicate a person who is the owner of this. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're the only person doing the work. I didn't hear that, but just that they're the champion of this effort. You got to have somebody on your team that's dedicated to that. You have to have a consistent commitment to demand creation and recruiting, even when you don't have openings. You got to have creativity in your posting and in your and also have diversity across all the different job boards and places that you're posting. There are so many more opportunities out there, and a little research will uncover that stuff. Also, you need to have boots on the ground evangelist, and I think that's basically just make sure you're running a really good company that people love, and then ask those people to, everywhere they go, talk about the fact that we're always looking for great people, and maybe that makes an impact at church and at the ball game on the weekend. Know what makes your company worth working for. and make sure that you spend time to understand that from your employees' perspective. Why are we great? And make sure that that's reflected in all of your marketing efforts. And then lastly, I've got to understand your competitive hiring situation. Know what your competitors are doing from a hiring standpoint, and know how you stack up so that you can be intentional about your market positioning. I think that's my big sort of takeaways from this conversation. First question, is there anything there that you think is missing? And I have a follow-on question.
Yeah, I think one that everyone can action right away is developing, because those are great, and it kills me because we built the course we built is 67 modules, so that we just talked about is probably like 2%. So there's so many more, so I have so much exciting stuff to cover, but I'll give one more that I think everyone can action like easily and quickly, and most people get good benefit, is implementing a skills assessment within the hiring process. So anybody in the field, like if you're self-performing work, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, masons, having a hands-on assessment that you can do at your shop or your yard, huge, easy. You get to see what they're doing. It allows you to move people to the front of the line quickly and evaluate them on what matters most. Project managers we have assessments for, superintendents, bookkeepers, C-suite executives. Having paid assessments is so easy because it can reduce hiring timelines, and it can reduce interview fatigue because you can move somebody right to something that's beneficial for them. So, we do it with controllers and bookkeepers, and and a superintendent, it might be, depending on the type of work you do, you might give them a set of plans and say, hey, take a look at this set of plans and tell me what you see wrong with this. If it's a house, if you're in residential, or if it's in commercial, it could be a business, depending on what you do or what you manage, and say, hey, what do you see here? Send me all the, concerns or questions or RFIs you might ask on this job. Or project manager, you might say, hey, make a schedule on this project here. Like, here's a set of plans. Make a schedule on this, and tell me what you think. And so we've got one. And here's what's really cool about this is if you set these up and you're hiring, you then start to get data to average. So like in my company, like my personal construction company, I've done hundreds of like in-field skills assessments. I have pictures of their work. And so it's so easy now to be like, all right, where does this fit on the scale? What pay did we bring that person in at? And you start to have this library, and you can also, here's what's really cool too. You can spot and pay A players way better, way faster. So like we had in the early days, I had a foreman come in, and he totally underplayed his skill set, right? He's like, I'm a good bricklayer. He's like, but you just got to see my work. And we saw his work, and I left it up at my yard for like 2 months. I wanted all my other team to see it.
Right. Look at this. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, who's this? I'm like, he's coming to work for us. Don't worry. He's coming to join the team. We were all excited. But so I think and we were able to pay him. We ended up giving him $5 an hour more than what he asked for. We were like, no. This is what you're worth, and here's why. This is what we think you should make. So it just keeps this very kind of open door. So skills assessment is a must in the hiring process, because you have that quantifiable data, and you do enough of it, and now you have averages. You can be like, oh, this is the best one by far. And so you don't have as much escalation and kind of like maybe concern and, do we hire them? Do we not? Third round interview. Oh, we don't know. It's like, here's the facts.
Right. No, I couldn't agree with you more. I think, so many people talk to me about like, well, yeah, they say they're great, but how do you know? I'm like, well, you can test them, right? Like you're allowed to test them and check. And so I love that. I think, incorporating a structured, efficient skills assessment, regardless of the position, that's a great screening tool. So, Matt, I want to be efficient with this because we're coming right up on time. But the question that I have, last question I have for you is, I understand that your business model is different. You're not a recruiter per se. Talk a little bit about what you're doing with your business model and why you're doing that, so that our audience, maybe, if anybody is interested, they can reach out to you.
Yeah, we built what I wanted when I was growing my company. We were like, our big growth spurt was right around it's funny when you said the 50 employees, that was right around the time, like I had the big hiring crunch, and I was like, oh man, I got to figure this out. So what we do is we do it on a monthly basis. We own the process. So we build the candidate demand. So we're responsible for generating interest. We're responsible for screening them. And then if you were our client, we would put final vetted interviews on your calendar. So you would just be doing yes or no. You'd be thumbs up, thumbs down on people that already have a driver's license, live where you want them to live, have all the pre-qualifications that you set. And that is our model. And we do the candidate rejection. We help you with the applicant tracking system. We do this for a low monthly fee. And what's neat about what we do, which we didn't expect, was because we do it this way, not only are we a fraction of like what a staffing agency or recruiter would be, but there's nothing tied to the candidate. So you can try people. And we found a staggering number. The last data I had was 87% of people that were trialed where they were like, I'm on the fence. And we remind them that it doesn't cost them anything extra to bring the person in if they feel good, stay. So it creates a different dynamic. So it's about saving money, saving time, and kind of owning the end result and taking things off the list of the construction business owner. So we don't add, our company model is we don't add to your to-do list. We go over what you need and we own it. So we are doers in the space.
That's great, man. Thank you. I think that's I love the business model. I think it's very, it's taking over and basically saying like, hey, here's how you would be doing it if you were running a best in class recruiting operation. We're going to go ahead and run that operation for you, and then feed you candidates and hire as many as you want. All you're doing is paying us to run that machine. You're not paying us for per candidate. We're not pushing candidates on you. None of that type of stuff.
Yep.
I love it, man. That's cool. Stacey, any final questions for Matt before we let him go?
I do. Real quick, I get this question a lot. A lot of my clients ask if they should run an employee referral program. And if so, what does that look like? Because, a lot of people refer their uncles or dads or whatever, grandfathers, to the business. So what would you recommend that looks like? Because I know it's probably different for everyone, but they don't even know what to start. Like, what is a good amount and what does the package kind of look like?
So I have a whole section on this in the course. It's super important to have an employee referral program. What we found, the best from data that we found in terms of getting them to be motivated is to treat it on a one-on-one basis. And so we tested this in my company early on. And so, for example, let's say you have 26 people on staff. What some companies will do is they'll tier it and say, all right, if we hire this role, this is what we'll pay you. If you get this, you get that. And it's very kind of black and white. It's simple. What we found that works better is if I have Michael, and Michael's my site super, I'll sit down with Michael for 5 minutes, say, this is a new program we're launching. And if I know Michael loves to go away with his wife, I might say, hey, and we're doing, for it would be a $250 Airbnb gift card if we hire somebody and you'd be able to get a getaway. Or if I have someone on the team that loves sports, I'd say, hey, like we did Dodger tickets for a few members on my team. I got way more excitement out of the fact that they were going to get good seats to a Dodgers game. Again, same cost as like a kind of simple financial incentive, but it's tangible. It's the gift that they wouldn't necessarily buy themselves that they can use. So I think hiring is a big problem. And if we believe that, then it's worth the 5 minutes per person to really understand like what's going to motivate that person the most. So that's, I think, to get the highest end result output, that's how you do it. But you could do a blanketed program where, we have a client that has 500 employees and he's like, I probably can't sit down with all of them. We're like, okay, well, maybe we can tier it based on the roles and kind of understand what does field team want, what does, management team want, what does executive team want, and do it that way. And so you can do blanketed as well. And then explaining and giving tips, where to find people, how to do it, things like that are helpful as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. If, at the end of the day, ideally, you can source the majority, right? The majority of your demand can come from your referrals, and there's nothing better. That's a great place to hire from. Beautiful. All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us. You certainly piqued my interest. I'm, looking for. I'll be watching and maybe taking your class too. I'm interested.
Nice.
Yeah. When is your class? Is it coming up? How can we find out about it?
Yeah, we built a whole course. It's called the Contractor Hiring Course. So it's 67 video modules, and it covers how do you find. We have 37 proven ways to find candidates. So we covered probably 3. Find them. How do you vet them, right? Quickly, inefficiently. How do you hire them? Do I email the offer letter? Do I bring them in? What do I do with the hiring process, to close that deal? And then how do I retain them? How do I motivate them? How do I onboard and retain? And so we built a whole kind of learning system that takes you through the steps in a more detailed way. I know, I wanted to cover as much as we could today, but there's
that's great.
Covered about 2%. So
good stuff.
Thank you.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks, Matt. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
See ya. Thank you. All right, Stacy, what do we have coming up next week?
Okay, let's see. We have Mark Ehrlich.
Oh, yeah, Mark Ehrlich. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of
Ehrlich,
fun.
yes. Restoring dignity to construction work. And you know a little bit more about that than I do, I think, right?
Yeah, this is another one of the rare ones that I contributed. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
So Mark is he's first off, he's just a really, really, really smart guy. He's retired professor from Harvard University. He was actually the head of their employment law practice, school at Harvard University, and was highly influential in guiding a lot of laws in the Northeast that helped to, in his words, restore the dignity of work and of trade contractors and all that stuff. So anyway, he's going to be coming on. We'll be talking about how we can learn from his experience, what maybe some of the challenges that we're facing in today's labor market, and what all contractors really should be doing to protect the dignity of labor in America. So that'll be a fun and a very, very heady discussion. That'll be cool.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah. All right, good. A reminder, as always, folks, to make sure that you are going to our website, which is not Well Built Consulting, my bad. the morning huddle construction show.com. Sign up for our newsletter, subscribe on your platform of choice. Whatever you're doing to consume your podcasts, make sure that we are on that. And if you find that we're not on a platform that you're using, please communicate that to us. But the morning huddle construction show.com. Make sure that you follow. Stacy, I think that's it for us.
Yep. I will see you next week.
Sounds great. See you
Feel
soon.
better.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.